Coming up on Mountain News this morning, we continue our coverage of yesterday's primary election races, including the biggest one in the state, the governor's race.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning, I'm Taylor Upchurch. Today is Wednesday, May 22nd. It's time to check in with Brandon Robinson for a look at your forecast this morning. Brandon, tell us how hot it's going to get today.
It's going to get pretty warm as we head deeper into the afternoon hours, and a heat wave is underway, and temperatures close to 90 basically for the next several days, not just today, for the next several days. Let's take a look this morning at UVA-wise, and you can see things have been pretty quiet there in the overnight hours. Not a whole lot of activity to talk about. Temperatures up to 70 now in Monticello, 67 in Louisville, so that warm air surging in from the south and from the west thanks to those southwest winds. Still in the 50s in Hazard and Harlan, Jonesville and Middlesboro, Jacksboro as well, but your day planner shows they were heading toward the upper 80s and close to 90 by the time it's all said and done with. I'll have the rest of the forecast coming up here in just a few minutes. Taylor?
All right, thank you, Brandon. Governor Matt Bevin will get the chance to win a second term in November. The governor did not hold an election party, but he chose to address the media after his victory. Bevin came away with nearly 53% of the Republican vote. He says the next 6 months will be interesting, but he's confident he'll win the re-election.
While I am confident that we will win because the market difference is going to be so obvious to people, in no way, shape, or form is that a given, not even remotely. And as I said, it will, I believe, be ours to lose. Could we lose it? We could. Do I think we will? I don't. I really don't. But the reality is, as soon as we assume it's in the bag and we take our foot off the gas, that's the beginning of the end for people politically.
Governor Bevin says he expects President Trump to come to Kentucky to help him campaign at some point. And Governor Bevin will take on a familiar foe in the general election, Attorney General Andy Beshear. Bevin and Beshear are no strangers, battling over pension reform and abortion laws in the past couple of years. Beshear took the stage at the C2 Event Center in Louisville after he won the Democratic primary. He talked about solving the opioid crisis, education, and he took a swing at the governor.
He's wrong on virtually every single issue, and he knows if he doesn't distract us, that he will lose. He is bullying our teachers, our first responders, and our social workers.
Beshear says other Democratic candidates on the ticket, Adam Edelin and Rocky Adkins, have pledged their support for November. And after a hard campaign in the rural areas of eastern and western Kentucky, Rocky Adkins came up short last night. Adkins basically swept the eastern part of the state where he calls home. He held the lead for most of the night until western parts of the state began to check in. Adkins encouraged his supporters to stand by the Democratic nominee.
So I want Andy Beshear to know, and his family to know, that I'll be traveling Kentucky, and I'll be trying my best to help Andy Beshear as we go through these next months, over these next weeks.
Adkins received about 32% of the vote, coming in about 24,000 votes short of Beshear. And former Kentucky Auditor Adam Edelin gave his concession speech last night around 8 o'clock. He told the crowd of about 150 supporters that there was not a path forward for him to become governor. Even with the loss, Edelin talked about his goal of helping to grow eastern Kentucky through his work with bringing solar panel farms to Pike County.
Look forward to returning to my business career, but there's a lot of good things we can do, and I think there's real impact that we can have in the private sector, and certainly diversifying the economy in eastern Kentucky is a really important part of that.
Edelin is a co-developer in the project that is expected to bring 200 construction and 50 permanent jobs to the area. And going back to the GOP race for the state's top office, State Representative Robert Goforth from Laurel County carried much of eastern and southern Kentucky. The underdog in the Republican race says challenging the governor was worth the effort.
I'm going to try to work very closely, as close as the governor will allow me to give input on what I think we could do better, and hopefully he will listen to some of that input.
From now until November, the attack ads will likely be fierce in the governor's race. There's no love lost between Governor Bevin and Andy Beshear. They have battled in court several times. Both have won. Kristen Kennedy breaks down the battle for the top spot in the Bluegrass for us.
They've been sparring for almost 4 years, and now the stage is set for their biggest battle yet. Before we look ahead, let's look back at the tumultuous relationship between Kentucky's governor and its attorney general. The Commonwealth elected Matt Bevin in November of 2015. One of his first acts, taking swings at his predecessor, Governor Steve Beshear, Andy's father. He dismantled Connect, the state's version of the Affordable Care Act, then launched an investigation into claims of corruption in the Beshear administration.
My job is to govern, not to sit on the outside and be an armchair quarterback.
He has bullied our universities. He has bullied you in the media. And he has bullied organizations that rely on state funding. But he's not going to get away with bullying me.
When Governor Bevin tried to cut funding to higher education, Attorney General Andy Beshear sued. The state Supreme Court ruled in the Attorney General's favor. And when the governor abolished and replaced the boards of trustees at the University of Louisville and the Kentucky retirement systems, the Attorney General sued. That makes lawsuits 2 and 3. The fourth time the two went to court was on challenging the executive order that made those actions possible. The Kentucky Supreme Court declined to rule on whether it was legal for the governor to abolish and replace the board. And because state legislature passed a law later in the year giving the governor more power to remove trustees, the state Supreme Court dismissed that case, saying the issue is moot.
Pension is a promise. A pension is a promise.
And when Frankfort turned red for pensions,
Pack your bags!
the battle between attorney general and governor got red hot.
The pension bill is government at its worst. It violates the rights of tens of thousands of Kentuckians.
Andy Beshear filed a lawsuit against Senate Bill 151 hours after Matt Bevin signed it into law.
All that I ask is that they follow the law. And if they repeatedly refuse to follow the law, then I have to sue them.
A judge ruled the passage of SB 151 unconstitutional. The lawsuits and teacher protests weren't over. During this year's General Assembly, teachers once again stormed the Capitol to protest education bills, forcing some school districts to close. The Bevin administration filed subpoenas to get their names, and Beshear took the labor cabinet to court to stop the subpoenas, but a judge denied his temporary restraining order.
It's 100% to do with politics. It's 100% to do with getting him elected. There is no mention in this lawsuit whatsoever of the free speech rights of any of these people at stake. Not one word, because that's not what it's about. He's a hypocrite.
The legal fights are likely far from over. With the two now going head-to-head for governor, the political rivalry will likely only get more intense. Kristen Kennedy, WKYT.
In other election news, a former aide to Senator Mitch McConnell will face a Floyd County political veteran in November for Attorney General. Daniel Cameron won the Republican nomination, defeating State Senator Will Schroeder. Both candidates battled over their conservative credentials. Cameron will face former Kentucky Attorney General Greg Stumbo, who held the office from 2004 to 2008. Stumbo was unopposed in the Democratic primary. Kentucky has not elected a Republican Attorney General in 70 years. And a former Miss America will be on the ballot in November for Secretary of State. Heather French Henry, who's also a former Kentucky Veterans Affairs Commissioner, easily defeated 3 other Democrats, including 2 from Eastern Kentucky. She will face former Board of Elections member Michael Adams. He defeated 3 other Republicans. Allison Lundergan Grimes could not run again due to term limits. Here's what she had to say about the win last night.
You never take a vote for granted, and you always run like you're behind. You never want to leave any stone unturned, and that's exactly what we've done in this campaign, and it has shown.
A Louisville cybersecurity professional won the Democratic nomination for Kentucky Auditor. Sherry Donahue says she will focus on protecting elections and rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, especially in the public pension system. Donahue beat teacher Kelsey Hayes Coots and author Chris Toby on Tuesday. She will face incumbent Republican Auditor Mike Harmon in November. And State Treasurer and Eastern Kentucky native Allison Ball now knows who she'll face in the fall. Banker Michael Bowman of Louisville won the Democratic nomination. Bowman touted his experience as a bank officer managing a multi-million-dollar financial portfolio and his work with local government. He beat business owner Josh Mers. Ball, who's from Prestonsburg, was unopposed in the Republican primary. And incumbent Ryan Quarles easily won the Republican nomination for Kentucky Agriculture Commissioner. During the campaign, Quarles touted his successes during the past 4 years, including the expansion of industrial hemp production. Scott County farmer Robert Conway won the Democratic nomination. Conway is an 8th-generation Kentucky farmer who touted his experience managing multi-million-dollar budgets and hundreds of workers as a transportation executive. Meanwhile, overall turnout for the primary was slightly better than anticipated. Secretary of State Allison Lundergan Grimes originally projected about 12% of registered voters would cast their ballot yesterday. Unofficial results put the number closer to 20%. You can see all of the election results on our website, WYMT.com.
You can also see them right there on the bottom of your screen this morning. Those will run for a little while longer. Beautiful start to the day here on this Wednesday on the Buffalo Mountain camera. We can see the sun coming up there over the hillside. Maybe just a few clouds. No major issues for us this morning. And you see rain off to our north and to our west. That's not going to reach us thanks to that warm front that's kind of playing as a block for us across the region this morning. Temperatures already up to 70 with those southwesterly winds coming into play in Monticello. Some mid to upper 60s across parts of the area. Some mid to upper 50s and some of those valleys. The 12-hour planner for today, we're going to climb and quickly as we get to close to 90. There we go. Get my voice in the row there. And as we get into the afternoon hours, so keep an eye on that and make sure you're taking your heat precautions, especially staying hydrated. Taylor?
All right. Thank you, Brandon. And thank you for joining Mountain News this morning. More news is on the way. Coming up, one World War II veteran was recently honored with an achievement he had spent the better part of his life working on.